This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, September the 17th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's produced the program. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. And thanks to Brian Callahan for sitting in for me yesterday. Bang up job as usual, Callie. And a great story this morning I heard on the VOCM Morning Show about 70 plus years of the Vera Berlin Society in operation. And of course, they do tremendous work. And also I want to say good morning to all participants of the Challenger Baseball League. I read this story last week. It's extremely heartwarming. So the Challenger Baseball, offered by the Blue Jays Care Foundation, of course, under the Toronto Blue Jays, bringing the sport to children and young adults with disabilities, whether it be cognitive, physical, or developmental. And you hear from one of the mothers in particular. So this lady's name is, the lady's Adina Stamp, and her son, Lyndon Anderson, held a baseball bat lifted to the top of the batting tee for the first time ever. And here's the quote: "I can cry right now, even speaking about it. It's just remarkable. I never thought he'd be able to do something like that." So absolutely brilliant stuff. So the Challenger Baseball League has been brought to the province in 2016 by a fellow named Colin Rose, currently offered in St. John's from June to September, and now also this year out in Corner Brook. Currently the provincial coordinator of Challenger Baseball Avalon is Brooke Squire. So if you've been involved in Challenger Baseball, I'd like to talk about and spread the good word here on the show. Absolutely happy to have you on. And a quick baseball note, Major League Baseball changed forever in 1947 when the first black man participated in the majors, playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time, Jackie Robinson. And he was, this date, named the Rookie of the Year by the Sporting News. And it didn't take off with all the baseball teams in Major League Baseball. Many fans were certainly pushing back against the inclusion of African-American or black baseball players. Like, for instance, one of the most beloved Chicago Cubbies is Ernie Banks. They didn't sign him till 1953, some 6 years later. So anyway, there you go. Curious story. Now, I've been seeing so many Facebook posts in particular about the Central Dairy's 2-liter 2% milk cartons. So Central Dairy's, in a little bit of what feels like downplaying the issue, say it's an isolated event and the milk is spoiling early, and when it's open and exposed to air, then of course the spoilage takes place pretty quickly, and the appearance of some black residue on the inside of the carton. Okay, they say that they've analyzed the situation, corrective and preventative measures are put in place last week, they've been found effective. My question would be, for folks, and even if there's no health risk, nobody wants to smell foul milk when it's gone before its best before date or expiry date. And is there any such thing as compensation or anything going to happen for those who, bought the 2-liter and ended up dumping it down the sink? So anyway, they say they've rectified it. There shouldn't be any more of that product on the shelves. Okay. And quick mention on behalf of at least a couple of dozen emailers. It's about the weekly printed edition of the Telegram newspaper. Just, of course, as you are all aware, with the purchase by Post Media, gone as a daily telegram, and just one printed edition per week. The problem with that is it's printed out of province, and it's being distributed by Canada Post, so the weekend edition is turning up in people's mailboxes, including mine, on Wednesday. And what that's going to mean for people to continue their subscription, hard to say. And I'm not trying to kick my friends and colleagues at the Telegram when they're down, because this is of none of their doing, but that is yet another monkey wrench in their operations. Let's keep going. So officially announced yesterday by the Deputy Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, Christopher Freeland, the mortgage rules that have now been changed. They talk about it making housing more affordable, and I think that's highly debatable. So it used to be that if you had purchased a house over the $1 million and didn't have a 20% down payment, you had to purchase mortgage insurance. That cap has now been increased, or the limit, has been increased to $1.5 million. Okay. Then, importantly, used to be about 30-year amortization rates only available on new builds. And, of course, that has now changed. First-time home buyers and anyone buying a newly built home can qualify, if they're interested, in a 30-year mortgage. So, great for the banks. Compound interest is their best friend. And when they talk about, like most housing plans in the country, and for all the various plans in the provinces, it does talk about building more. Not so sure we're going to hit the affordability target. Just think about it out loud. So we have a supply problem. Now we've ginned up demand. Like there was a home on my street just yesterday closed for $50,000 over ask. So more and more people with access to it. Look, I don't begrudge a first-time home buyer. Of course, people want to get into a home if they're so inclined. But when the government says this is going to hit the target regarding affordability, it's hard to understand exactly how they think that's going to work that way. Right? If I have access to a 30-year mortgage, which might save me some money in my monthly payment, but certainly going to pay way more out in compound interest to the lender, whether that be the bank or some non-traditional insurance or lending outfit. So I don't know. So it's now formalized, and they talk about it being a potential quick fix. Not so sure it's going to hit the target as they are considering it might. And this story. And we know over the last few years, the population in the country has grown by some 3 million people. And of course, the country was not prepared for 3 million additional people, whether that be inside the world of education, whether it be with healthcare, and of course with housing. It's really unfortunate how sometimes a number's just thrown around that all of a sudden becomes gospel to so many people who read it, whether it be in the National Post or a tweet coming from the Premier of New Brunswick, Higgs, regarding asylum seekers. So I have been absolutely bombarded in emails saying, how can the government of Newfoundland and Labrador possibly be considering welcoming 4,000 additional asylum seekers? Because that's the number that got floated around. And it doesn't seem to be the case. The Premier says, Premier Fury says, that the government is now is considering 190 asylum seekers only if the federal government supports are in place. Now, it may indeed further complicate the job market, access to healthcare, and yes, a place to live, but it's not 4,000, it's 190. Currently in the province, there's 291 asylum seekers. So it really would be helpful if folks like at the National Post and or Blaine Higgs or anybody else would kind of figure these things out, because people are worried, people are stressed out. Immigration has become a very difficult conversation, and it's only further complicated and further angering for so many when they see the number like 4,000, 3,000, when the number is 190. There's a long way between the two. So anyway, that's the update apparently coming from the Premier's office. All right, speaking of the Premier, so on a trade mission to Massachusetts last week, and you've all heard the story about they've decided to open an office in Boston, sharing office space with Global Affairs. Apparently, our office will be independent from federal government operations at that consulate. So they talk about whether it be opportunities in wind projects or biotechnology, looking for partners and customers and research or product development, up and down the line. And there's a lot of energy conversation that we're going to have here, but okay, so they're going to hire a person at the assistant deputy minister level to run the office. Fair questions being asked. Whether or not it's important to have a presence in the United States. Our largest trading partner, one of the biggest markets in the world. And we do have some synergies, I would imagine, that we can expand on or exploit, whatever the right word is. But like most things that government does, that seem to be a little bit of thinking outside the box. So people are fairly asking, at what cost? Like, it's not just going to be one assistant deputy minister level person running the office, is it? And if so, how can that person possibly put all the opportunities for startups or other businesses and industries in this province to all the potential partners in the United States? So at what cost? Fair enough. But more importantly is, what's the thought process for the government to determine whether or not over the course of, and you have to give it some time, I guess, to work. So even if it's over the course of 2 years or 5 years or whatever the right number is, how are we going to know whether or not it's actually working? Like, how do you measure successes? It's been one of the real shortcomings of governments for as long as I can recall, that it's fine to talk about spends, it's fine to talk about, in their terminology, investments, but exactly what's going to constitute a successful investment or spend with opening an office in Boston? I think it's a pretty good question. So if someone can give us an idea, whether it be X number of startups are able to gain funding from, whether it be out of the state of New York or in Boston proper itself, and or the customer base has been expanded, or investment coming in for research and development and hopefully monetization of intellectual property held in this province. Just some better understanding as to exactly how that's going to work would be helpful, I think, to many, if not most. All right, so let's get into the price of gas. Some disconnects that people are pointing to. Now, the provincial government, I guess, is going to have to give us some sort of update as to what it means regarding the slumping price of a barrel of oil. So the government used a forecast of $82 American for a barrel. That's about 15% of the government's overall total revenue. But crude oil prices have dropped 21% in the last 6 months, trading this morning at about $72 US per barrel. We have been told in the recent past, it all has a direct relationship with the currency exchange rates as well, but every dollar below, on an annual average below 82, costs the government of Newfoundland and Labrador approximately $16 million per dollar in shortcomings. So that's a long way between 72 and 82. Now, of course, it is once again an annualized average. But let's just look at that a little further for what it means at the pumps. Now, the price of gas has come down pretty significantly over the first 8 months of the year. But if crude has come down 21% over the past 6 months, but a litre of gasoline has only come down around 6.2%, it does beg the question is, how can we better understand the relationship between the price of a barrel of oil and the price of gasoline? Now, we know gasoline is a manufactured product and it's built on a 90-day speculation market by and large, and it's a real supply issue. There's no shortage of supply for oil. So it is a fairly reasonable disconnect that people are pointing to. Price of barrel of oil down 21%. Price of gasoline, not so much. Even though it's down some 33 cents since the beginning of the year. We can talk about it if you're so inclined. And for the oil industry watchers, a disappointment in results out in what was touted to be a potential massive oil find out at Persephone. Now, Persephone and Sitka are not part of the Bay du Nord project and based on their business model for Equinor, but people were talking about the possibility of some 3 billion barrels of oil in Persephone, and apparently not. So they completed the drilling some 500 kilometers east of St. John's, went down safely to 3,000 meters of water by the Stena Drill Max drill ship. And they say, this comes from ExxonMobil spokesperson, it showed no evidence of commercial hydrocarbons. So that's a second straight result on that front. But once again, it's not part of the business case for Bay du Nord. But they're going to keep going. So it's a wildcat well, because it's not inside a commercially viable oil field. So they're going to keep going, though. They're going to drill out another nearby prospect called Capahayden South, and that's another Equinor announcement. So the first one, Persephone, ExxonMobil and their partner, Qatar Energy. Anyway, for the folks on St. Brendan's, no doubt they're worried. And people will say, well, we're only talking about 40 families or 40 homes that are not going to see their home heating fuel delivered. But this is a real problem. No, we can talk about monies that are there for energy refits, to move away from heating your home with oil into electric furnace or to for mini splits and all, but that's not the case for many people living on the island. And you know, one story that quotes a fellow who just replaced his oil tank. Now, the announcement back in February of this year is that this was going to be a distinct possibility, and now it's come home to roost. So when we talk about the necessities of life, food, and to heat your home in what will be potentially a very bitter winter, so what is the plan? And what does government actually do? I don't even know what I think of that story or what government could or should be doing, but it's a pretty big one. And if you want to bring it on and maybe bring forward some suggested solutions, like even the deputy mayor when he was on the show talking about the fact that maybe even just twice a week, or bi-weekly, or maybe even thrice weekly, they could probably accommodate the individual residential homeowners if that could be the play. Sticking with energy. How are we doing on the phone there, David? Let's keep going with energy. So we know that there's been a deal struck between the province and the Inner Nation regarding rate mitigation at Muskrat Falls. And now announced by Federal Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson yesterday in Halifax, apparently negotiating some $500 million for Nova Scotia Power, of course a subsidiary of Halifax-based Emera, for a said rate mitigation once again. Why? All because of the delays and the spike in the budget cost at Muskrat Falls. You know, we've asked Jennifer Williams, the CEO of Hydro, on this program about our contractual obligations with the province of Nova Scotia. And of course, the Maritime Link, a 180-kilometre subsea link, or undersea link, I guess best said, built on time, on budget, and yet as their partners here in this province, now we see the federal government having to come to bat for the province of Nova Scotia and their ratepayers. They were looking at a 19% hike over just a couple of years if there was no mitigation, as they call it, mitigation dollars. So they're looking at $500 million for the province of Nova Scotia. I don't know what that means for us, but there you go. All right, let's move on to a very tricky subject. We see it in this province, but we also know that the epicenter for drug addictions and drug overdoses seems to be the province of British Columbia. Long has been the case where people who are potential to harm themselves or others, you can be involuntarily detained, even if you didn't commit a crime. Now, BC Premier David Eby, even though he ran on this last time that he got elected, but has kind of balked at it, they're talking about now involuntary care for folks who are experiencing severe mental illness or are severely addicted. Now, again, long this has been the case. They're going to create 400 involuntary care beds in prisons and hospitals, and 10 beds inside what they call the Surrey Pre-Trial Centre. All of these facilities will provide involuntary care under the BC Mental Health Act for people certified as requiring that care. What the certification criteria looks like, not entirely sure. Premier Eby at the time said that he wasn't going to follow through with this measure on involuntary care because they didn't think it could pass the smell test of a challenge against the Canadian Chartered Bill of Rights. But here they go. There is some massive concerns here. Look, I get public safety, and for those who are severely mentally ill and who have a severe addiction, and what that might mean for jeopardizing public health is very real. I mean, they talk about this being precipitated by a fatal stabbing, and also the story of a 13-year-old girl who overdosed on these toxic drugs because she refused care. The research is murky, though, and it really is. We had a psychologist on the show talk about this exact subject not long ago. Whether or not it decreases hospitalizations, whether or not it decreases eventual drug overdose deaths and or crime is not really well understood. It really feels as much political as it does in the realm of healthcare and or of public safety, but they're moving forward in BC, and I'm going to imagine that this will be something we hear discussed in provinces from coast to coast to coast, because so many of the societal scourges on the streets, the issues plaguing neighbourhoods, and seeing people go through the turnstiles of the courtrooms in this province right across the country. We're told, for instance, in this province, people dealing with severe mental illness and or severe drug addiction represents some 80% of the cases called. But it's also interesting. Like, we don't even have the people, human resources, and or the space to accommodate people who are willing and wanting to get help for whether it be their addiction or their mental illness. So where are the healthcare professionals to accommodate this play? Where are all the beds going to be? Because it's one thing to make a political announcement, quite another to be able to follow through realistically with this concept of involuntary care. And again, the research really does not show definitively that it's going to be either A, beneficial to the individual, and or B, to society. But that's what they're talking about in BC, and it looks like they're going to proceed. But I don't know if even that Premier, David Eby, thinks that they actually have the healthcare professionals and or the space at this moment in time, but massive issue. Couple of quick ones before we get to you. Yet another brutal by-election loss handed to the federal Liberals. They had a very, very safe seat, or was deemed one of their very safe seats in one of the Montreal ridings in La Salle, Emard, and Verdun. The Bloc Québécois took it. Now, it was, of course, extremely close. So the Bloc candidate took 28%, 27.2% for Palestini, who was the Liberal candidate, and 26.1% for the New Democrat. So fewer than 250 votes separate the Bloc and the Liberal candidates. But when outgoing Justice Minister David Lametti last won that seat, he won it by 20 points. And now they lose by 1 point. Similar to Toronto St. Paul, when the last Liberal candidate won it by 33 points, and they lost by a few points in that devastating by-election for the federal Liberals. Now, the NDP took what is a pretty safe NDP seat just outside of Winnipeg, but this is a big loss for the Liberals again. You don't need the polls to tell you that this is one more blow to the leadership of Justin Trudeau, yet in obstinate fashion apparently has no inclination to either entertain a formal leadership review and or to simply walk away from the job. You have to imagine the tensions growing amongst the Liberal caucus must be at an all-time high, but that is a brutal loss for the Liberals in what they deem to be another very safe seat gone. And now, of course, with the House of Commons reopened, it's going to be a dizzying array of non-confidence votes. The government itself can call any motion a non-confidence motion, and any member of Parliament can put forward a non-confidence motion. Now, the Conservatives are going to need the Bloc or the NDP or someone to vote with them to see the government need to call an election. And of course, budgetary items are obviously going to be confidence items, and including fall economic statement. That includes any new spending is indeed a non-confidence vote. So there's still potential there. This tearing up of the supply and confidence agreement doesn't mean that election is going to be forthcoming in the near term, but it makes it more possible. So we're going to see an awful lot of that as opposed to attending to the people's business. It's going to be all about the potential for a federal election. And, the Prime Minister deservedly gets a lot of focus by the media. Other leaders, maybe not so much, including Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. So an address to his members of parliament the other day painted a very, very dire picture. Okay. Talking about nuclear winter, mass hunger, malnutrition, and this is all about increase in the carbon tax. Talking about seniors have to turn down the temperature of their home to 14 degrees or 13 degrees. But what's not included in that is that that's the exact segment of society, low-income earners, people on fixed incomes. They always leave out the concept of a rebate. You can hate the carbon tax all you like, but it would be, you would hope, pretty important for leaders in particular to be inclusive of all of the moving parts of anything, including the carbon tax. Then he goes on to causing mass inflation. Inflation would run rampant and people would not be able to leave their homes or drive anywhere. Okay, again, I don't care who you want to vote for, and if you hate the Liberals and the carbon tax and you love Mr. Poilievre and his Axe the Tax slogan, but let's just do some math here. So, inflation run rampant. Inflation has been cut more than half since August of 2022, while the carbon price has increased by 60%. So, come on. Again, whatever party you choose to support, fair enough, but the inflation rate cut by more than half in just over 2 years at the exact same time that the carbon tax went up 60%. So, boy, oh boy. All right, let's get to the break. First, we're on Twitter. We're VOCM Openline. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's begin this morning on the top of the board. Line number 1. Good morning, Michael. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, and how are you doing this morning?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Oh, top shelf. I've been trying to get a hold of somebody at the Western Memorial Hospital, and I've called this number that they have there for the CT scan, and I don't know if it's a CT scan or if it's an MRI or what it is. Anyway, I've called the number, the 784-5440, and I cannot get a return call. Literally impossible. And here we are, opening up a tourism office in Boston, for the love of God. I mean, is that sensible?
I don't know. It remains to be seen whether or not that makes any sense whatsoever in the city of Boston. But can you give me that number one more time? Because I had an old number for Western Memorial, but I don't know if it was the old hospital or the new hospital, about 637-5000.
Oh, no, this is that's the hotel operator, yes. But this is to change or call this appointment, about the appointment, is 709-784-5440 between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And I've called yesterday, and and it's just literally, physically impossible to reach anybody there. I get a recording, and all of a sudden, goodbye, that's it, no more to it than that, so... But anyway, having said that, I mean, here we are trying to put a casino in Marble Mountain. For the love of God, get some staff members of the hospital. They're overworked. They don't know which way to go, for goodness sakes. You know?
The casino at Marble is a local business idea as opposed to government working towards it. But I just popped up the numbers for the... medical imaging department. The one at the Western Memorial Regional Hospital, I have two different numbers. One for scheduling, that's 784-5993. The 5440 apparently is a number for the Sir Thomas Roddick Hospital in Stephenville. So maybe give 784-5993 a shot at Western Memorial in Cornerbrook.
What was that number again? I'm sorry.
No problem at all. So 709.
709, yes, indeed.
784.
784, yes.
5993.
5993. No. Okay, well, I'll certainly try that again. No. But I mean, we got more to be doing with our money, for the love of God. I mean, like the man is like a drunken sailor, and instead of putting people in the hospital where they can answer the phone at least. I mean, it's totally, absolutely ridiculous, to say the least, and I don't know who's responsible for it, but somebody needs a good kick in the rear end, you know that.
Yeah, well, calling any entity of government is proven to be extremely difficult, especially when you're hoping to speak to a human being. So I just want to make sure you have the last four right, because I think you said 6993, it's 5993.
5993. Yep. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, I certainly will give them a call and see if I can find something else. I don't know if I can or not, but I certainly will try. Thank you very kindly for your time, and have a pleasant day.
The same to you, Michael. Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, so again, you know, it has been a dramatic change, let's just say over the course of the last 10 years. where counter service has changed and some people would suggest has eroded. And then the digitization of so much of our information. And, My Health, that application at gov.nl, I guess can be absolutely helpful when you're looking for results and whatever the case may be. But scheduling, to speak with someone, I guess we've just seen a slow shift away from what used to be pretty quick. Like when my mother worked at the Health Sciences Centre, I can almost remember the switchboard. I think it was 737-6300. And you spoke to someone right away, and they'd put you onto the billing department, or the scheduling department, or the orthopedic clinic, or family medicine, or whatever. But now it seems to be pretty difficult to get anyone on the phone. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Diane. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. How you doing?
I'm in a very horrible dilemma. I'm 73, worked all my life in nursing. And I ended up having, first of all, I'll start off with I had a really bad tenant. I had a stroke last June. They thought I was going to die. Obviously, I didn't, thank God. I miraculously came out of the stroke after 2 months. So I was intubated. They thought they were going to have to pull the plug. And I came out of that. Took me 2 months. I am a senior. I came home, and there was a tenant in my basement. My son got a tenant for me and thought he was a nice fella, him and his girlfriend. And he paid me my month's rent on 1st of July when I got home. And Patty, he never paid me a cent after. Not a cent. I couldn't get rid of him. I'm 73 now in a week. He was a 25-year-old punk and a drug cocaine dealer and fentanyl. He changed locks on me. He didn't abide by any laws. There was people coming all night and all day, every half hour in the nighttime, so nobody saw anybody else's vehicle. Right? Police were called numerous times, but they couldn't do anything. And so there was a matter of he said, she said. But in the course of all that, I went through landlord tenants, which was the right way to do. And it's a very lengthy process. It takes almost 3 months from the start of the process to get to that phone call. Conference call, is it?
Possibly, if you have more than 2 people on the line, it could be a conference call. Possibly, yes.
No, not conference. It's only 2 people, and nobody could overhear it.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. Anyway, I did that, and I got nothing from it. But in the end, I know what happened. We had a day last year. I don't remember. Everything closed 12 o'clock in the day because they thought we were going to get this horrible snowstorm. And we didn't. And I missed my call. Then I had to wait 3 more months. I had to wait until after Christmas. Finally got the call, and they decided he had to go, and we had to get the sheriff to come and take him out. But in the meantime, Patty, he owed me $10,000, which I don't have, and I am suffering terribly for it. They're going to take my house. I'm living in this house now for 30 years. I have 4 pets. My son lives with me, and they're threatening to take my house. And I'm just about gone. I'm having nightmares about it. And I don't know what to do. Last person I talked to said that I had to come up with 14,000 plus 3,000 to for legal fees for having the lawyers come and take my house. I never heard tell of the like of it.
No, so because the rent didn't get paid, you were unable to pay the mortgage. That's basically what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay.
That was because of the tenant, yes. He wouldn't pay me any money. And I didn't have any. The money I had, that don't even make sense. He didn't pay me any money.
I understand.
Yeah. But anyway, he owed me $10,000, and that was the dilemma I was in. I couldn't keep up with my mortgage.
Well, it sounds highly unlikely you're going to be able to get any money from that nuisance. So your only recourse, I guess, is to try to renegotiate your mortgage with your bank. Have you tried that, or they simply told you, here's what you have to do? I need $14,000 or $10,000 right away. If not, they're going to foreclose. So has there been any attempt to renegotiate your mortgage?
I had my mortgage not foreclosed, remortgaged in June.
Oh no. Okay.
I had a foreclosed in June. Well, I mean, Tom, like, here I am, and I can't go out on the street. A woman my age, after working hard all her life, worked 42 years in nursing. And here I am because of a bad tenant.
It's a terrible situation. And what solutions might be available at this late stage, given that the mortgage has already been foreclosed on? I really honestly don't know, Diane. But I know someone in the mortgage business, and I'll just send him a very quick text asking if there any recourse after foreclosure, because I don't know the answer. And if there is any option that he can present to me, myself or David will call you back with either a telephone number for someone to call and or a suggestion about what you might be able to do. But I really don't know, but I'll see if I can find out.
I would really, really appreciate it, Patty. And I did want to mention, touch on a couple of quick things.
Okay.
I mentioned the name, but as soon as I got on the line, everything just blurted out of me because I'm so distraught. I mean, after working 42 years in nursing, did nothing but good. My last stint was looking after the poor veterans, dementia test veterans down the Veterans Pavilion. And I loved it. All I did was help people. And here I am. I mean, a lot of people are in a lot of situations, I know, but I don't know. This is one of the worst of the worst. And I do listen to your line every day. And that other little boy that only got 2 hours a day. To me, I don't know what the government is doing. I mean, every child deserves to be the best that they can be. Anybody will agree with that.
Of course, and if you're talking about the caller that I'm thinking of, I mean, not even sending the child to school anymore, right? So, I mean, pardon?
I thought he was getting 2 hours a day, which is nothing.
No, I mean, there's a bunch of these stories kicking around. The one caller we had on last week, the child was getting 5 hours a day of support in the classroom. This year down to 45 minutes. And so consequently, not even sending the child to school any longer because it's unsafe possibly and absolutely zero opportunity to advance. And then there was another family in the exact same news story talking about the fact that their supports aren't there, period. So once we talked about that, and then we had Tina Neri on from Inclusion Canada, these stories are all too common. The government can pretend all they like that we have an inclusive model of education, but the fact of the matter is we're just sending the children all to the same school, not that we're actually involving all the supports that they need.
I think it's awful. The meantime, the government needs to be changed anyway because they have done nothing. I'm really happy for the school lunch program. That is a really good. That is a good thing.
Yep.
But they don't do nothing for seniors. There's more poverty seniors counting on food banks and whatever, and help from friends and family. But I mean, John, they have done nothing for me, the government. Well, it's time for a change anyway. I don't think Andrew Fury is going to get in. He'd make a better doctor than he'd do a politician.
Yeah, we'll see what the sentiment feels like when they go to campaign, drop the writ, as they say, sometime in the new year. I have no earthly idea when that's going to be, but sometime in 2025. I appreciate your time and understand your concerns this morning, Diane. I will send that text message to see if I can come up with any helpful advice for you.
There's no way. Well, there's so much money. I was going to suggest if anybody could put some money, so much, $1 here and there would add up type thing.
Yeah, and if anyone's so inclined to help you financially, then they'll call us or email us. And if that is something that anyone does contact me with, then I'll put them on to you. You don't mind if I share your number if someone wants to be generous?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Because there's a lot of criminals out there, but there are a lot of good, fine people out there too.
That there are, absolutely. I appreciate your time, Diane. I'll be in touch if I have anything for you.
Okay, thank you so much, Patty. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. And just a further note on St. Brennan's, when they put a different dye in fuels for tax purposes, they continue to deliver fuel, North Atlantic does, to the island of St. Brennan's, but it's only for the school, the health clinic, the post office, and the hydro plant owned and operated by Newfoundland Labrador Hydro. So when you add that to the mix, of course, that makes it even more frustrating for the residents. Let's take a break. Do not go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3, segment to the Vice Chair at Happy City St. John's. That's David Brake. David, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Nice to be here again.
Happy to have you on.
With a happy story, which is that we're having our AGM on Wednesday, tomorrow. And we're going to be talking about what we've done and looking forward and welcoming new people onto the board, some of whom might be listening to this very show. For people who don't know what Happy City is, we're a group of people trying to encourage people to think more about city affairs and keeping an eye on what the city's up to. And if you're the kind of person who thinks about that, we'd like to hear from you. It's not too late. You could even come and join us on the board. But I think fundamentally we worry, I think, that there's not enough people who realize just how important, for example, the running of the council is to people's everyday lives. The things that the council decides on in the way of planning and provision of transit and roads and so on affect people's lives fundamentally, sometimes long term in terms of where we build houses and shops and so on, sometimes short term, being able to walk around town in winter, things like that. We would like to make sure people know what's going on, and we need some help in putting things together. I think we've done a lot of stuff that's we're proud of in the last year, but we need more people to come along and take an interest. And I've really enjoyed. I'm the vice chair now. I've been in the organization in several years. It's a great organization, great people to work with, always interesting. So if any of that sounds like the kind of thing you'd be interested in, and I hope it does, we're having our AGM at the Lantern, 35 Barnes Road, tomorrow at 7. You can also Zoom in. We're going to put a link up on our site, happycity.ca. We'll put a link up to Zoom so you can Zoom in. And if you visit our website as well, you'll find in the posting about the AGM itself, you'll also find a link to how to put yourself forward for the board, because you don't need anyone to nominate you. You can just say, I'd like to do that, and tell us a little bit about you, and we'll as a vote. We always love to hear about new people who are interested in civic things in the city. It'd be your chance to meet a bunch of us.
Absolutely. You've done some interesting things over the years, and hopefully some of it has an impact with the actual decision makers, whether it be bureaucrats and or councillors, mayors and deputy mayors at the council level. David, anything else before we take another call here this morning?
Just that. I should mention, like, it may seem a while away, but the city's elections for council are coming up in a year's time, and so this coming year, which for the AGM, is going to be a very busy year. We hope it will be a very busy year for Happy City St. John's. There's a lot for us to do. There's a lot of really important work, and it saddens me as a journalist and that there aren't as many people who are able to keep an eye on things out in the media as there used to be. So we believe that an organisation like Happy City plays a vital role in making sure that as these elections come up, as decisions are being made on council, people know about what's at stake. And so we're looking for people to listen to what we do and help us to get the word out in the next year.
David, good to have you on the show. Good luck with the AGM.
Thanks very much, Paddy. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Take care. That's David Brake. He's the Vice Chair at Happy City St. John's. David, did you say to take line number 2 before the break? Okay, let's do exactly that. Let's go to line number 2. John, you're on the air.
Yeah, just listening to that elderly lady that is basically looking for some kind of recourse as to her losing her home even after foreclosure.
Absolutely.
And now I was looking online, and they have a direct number, the 403 number out in St. John's. 403 seems to me like Alberta, but it basically is in St. John's somehow. Anyway, they said that there are recourses that can be taken even after you foreclose, and because nothing happens anyway until you go to court and the judge makes his ruling.
That's right, yep.
And you control, what they do is they help you to control the way that your foreclosure works out. Because there is a recourse, the banks could renegotiate with her. Usually it's a bigger sum that they would like to do, but they can also extend the mortgage. They can, solve for their benefit anyway. And not only that, but you can also make some kind of gesture towards, the payments itself, so that at least a payment is being made. It's almost like rent. You can't kick them out unless, they're stopped, paying rent. Because if they make one attempt during the process, of course, seems like they turn a good favor in a way. And, they're able to stay in that place and, continue to rent. But anyway, I'll give you the phone number before I forget that.
Sure.
And it's 403,
yep,
which to me is an Alberta number, but that's okay. 879 7935.
Okay.
And basically what they do is, like I said, they help you to control the way that you're the one that decides the way that you want your house to be, in the end, whether you want to continue with the foreclosure or basically try to make payments as much as you can. And of course, it might take a little bit, but I hate to see anybody get out of their home, especially with the home shortages and the way the rent is today. I hate to see them lose a home they had for over 30 years.
Me too, and that's why I asked her right away about renegotiating with the lender, and I assume it's a bank in her case. And that's an option that is available. I know people who've gone through the process even before, and I'm not sure about after foreclosure has actually taken place, but hopefully she has some success there. I'm still waiting to hear back from my mortgage buddy. Maybe he has some advice as well, but I'm glad you offered yours, John. Thanks for calling.
Yep. All right. You have a good day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, let's see if we can get Diane a little bit of helpful direction to point her in. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Sean, you're on the air.
How you doing today, Paddy?
Not too bad, thanks. How about you?
Not too bad. You had a caller a couple of callers ago. I know she was talking about her mortgage, but she brought up about the education system for kids also.
Yep.
And, yeah, I have a kid. I have a child she just started grade 10, so she's in high school. She She has anxiety, OCD, and all through junior high, she suffers with being able to go to school. But she went through grade 7, 8, and 9 with a lot of difficulty and got through it. But the education system for kids that are like going through what my daughter is going through is nowhere near where it should be. Nowhere near. I know that she has a lot of issues with being around her own peers and stuff because of her OCD. And I know that the teachers that are doing these programs are wonderful people, and I just think that the government needs to do a little bit more, because my daughter is probably getting 60% of the education, where a child who has no issues, they're getting 100% of the education, or whatever they want to put in at least. My daughter has no issues learning. She's a very bright child. It's just trying to get her to go to class is the issue. So great high school, the difference in junior high and high school, the program in junior high, my daughter basically had one-on-one with a teacher. Now, the teacher there was days where she might have had 8 students in her class, or some days she might have had 20, but there was most days it was just her and my daughter. High school don't have the same program. They got a little touch of that program going through grade 10, 11, and 12. Now, we hope that, with a lot of supports that my daughter has, that she's able to get back into a regular classroom setting. We always hold hope for that. But in the case that she can't, we fear that her high school education is going to be diminished a lot because of her issues that she has. And again, it's not the school, it's not the teachers. Obviously, this falls back on the programming that the government has put in place.
Your story, hers, and the comments that she was making, is just unbelievable to me. That, and I only hear from a select number of families, but I guarantee I have certainly somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 that have children with exceptionalities that just need some additional support in the school. And the biggest problem with that is they were told they would get the supports, and then lo and behold, they either A, don't get them, or B, what's even more confusing and frustrating for me is when, okay, I had the support that I needed last year. I show up this year to school, and it's not there. They're not prepared for me. I'm the same child with the same concerns I was in your school last year. You know who I am, you know what I need, and it's not there when I come back to school. Then you have to go through the issue of fighting for your child, or advocating for your child, or being the champion for your kid, and not everyone's got the energy, and not everyone even knows where to start. So either government can figure this out, or we're just going to have to start from scratch and reconfigure the schools, because if we're just leaving so many children behind, and in addition to that is children that are extremely gifted and possibly bored, we're not challenging them either. And so even if your child is so-called able-bodied, quote-unquote normal child, the lack of supports for other children, the lack of challenge for the gifted student has an impact on your child's education as well, because the teacher is trained to the max, not helping anybody, exactly. Not one single person.
No, and I know, I've made lots of calls about this, to government officials and whatnot, and there's schools in place that, there's a school in place for kids that are in my daughter's situation where, if they got anxieties and they got different challenges, they can go to this particular school. But in saying that, those kids in that school, some of them have a little bit more needs and some bigger issues, and to put my daughter in that situation would be worse. So, she's going right now. She's in high school. She's going to do mornings for a little while. She was a week late starting because she didn't want to be around all the hustle and the bustle of the first few days of school, as we all know what it's like. But the program, I guess my complaint here is, and I don't mean to be complaining, Patty, because the teachers are doing whatever they possibly can. I mean, they're shorthanded. They're shorthanded in what the situation we have is a big problem. But my issue is grade 7, 8, 9. It was okay. She was able to get out of junior high with her education, a lot of, especially the core subjects, she was able to get through the core subjects, but they're telling me the high school don't have the same plan, the same program, that junior high had, which I don't understand. Like my daughter's, like you just said, my daughter's situation didn't change over the course of 2 months over the summer. I mean, just to get her to get up in the morning and go to school. I mean, there's a lot of sleepless nights for not only her, but for us as parents. I mean, we're obviously stressed out. She's a very, like I said before, and I'm not just saying it. Oh, she's my daughter. She's smart. She's very bright child, and she actually has anxieties over not being able to go to school because she's focused on education. She's always been focused on education. She had no issues going up through school, right up to grade 5, grade 6. Then all of a sudden, the anxiety hit her, and it had nothing to do with COVID. She's always had issues with anxiety and OCD. A lot of people like to put it off as, oh, COVID did this and COVID did that. It has nothing to do with COVID. It's just she has issues. Her other sister has issues. Her mom has issues with the same kind of anxiety. So it's kind of in the family. But my point here is I don't understand why they can't do the same structure in high school as they can in junior high for her. Because I know that in order for her, she wants to go to university and she wants to make something of herself education-wise, and hopefully that she can do that. But for her to be able to go to university, she's probably going to have to spend an extra 2 years to probably try to get the credits and courses she needs because the programs are not in place. And I know 2 years is not a long time, but again, it's stressful on everyone that's involved, including Claire and us as parents. I just find the government talks like they got all these great programs in place, but when you're actually going through them as we are as a family, they're not even close. Like I'm figuring that our daughter is going to probably get 40 to 50% of the education that she should be getting 100% of the education if she never had any issues. But there should be programs in place for her to get 100% of the education.
Of course.
She shouldn't have to pick, like my daughter shouldn't have to pick basic courses over advanced courses because she's having anxiety. She's well capable of doing the advanced courses, but now we have to change all her programming, all her classes. We have to change them all up in order for her to try to get some education in grade 10. Instead of her coming out with the courses to go to university, that's what I was saying. So now when she turns 18, 19 years old, she's probably, and it's not a big deal, but still, why are these hurdles in place for these kids? I don't get it.
They shouldn't be. Short answer. Sean, I'm late for the news, but I appreciate making time for the show. Good luck.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
You're welcome, bud. Bye-bye. And I don't know how to put this, but your child might not even know what to expect when they go to the next grade and whether or not things are moving as smoothly and as efficiently as they could or should be. And nor will the family know, because you're not in the classroom, so you don't know exactly what's going on and whether or not the teacher is so strained and moving in 1,000 different directions, and whether or not your child is actually getting the kind of attention that they should get in a perfect scenario. It's never going to be perfect. That's one thing for sure. But even children who don't need any additional support, how do they or their parents know or their caregivers know if they're getting what they actually should be getting in a better scenario? Because I'll drop the word perfect because there's no such thing. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're talking about Bridges of Hope, and Daryl's got an issue with EI. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Roger Nicol. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
I'm well, sir. How about you?
I'm doing great.
You got a fundraiser that you're working on. Tell us about it.
Okay, so the fundraiser that we're working on is we're trying to help out our local food bank, Bridges to Hope. So what we're doing is we have a donation box set up outside of our home with the Bridges to Hope logo, with a sign out there, and we're hoping that the community will help out and donate, because at this time during the fall season, things are getting low with the food banks, and the food banks are struggling right now to get donations.
I mean, it's the perfect storm. The number of users is increasing, the number of donations is decreasing. So it's obviously unsustainable at that pace. And I can vouch for Mr. Nicol here and his partnership with Bridges to Hope. I have a letter here in my email inbox that says exactly that. So the house is at 26 Winnipeg Street here in the city of St. John. So if you at all have the capacity, please do consider driving by Winnipeg Place and dropping off a non-perishable that will be donated to Bridges to Hope. But you're talking about a haunting on Winnipeg. What's that?
Okay, so the haunting on Winnipeg, that was a little something that my wife and I started 6 or 7 years ago. What it was is every October 1st, we would put all of our Halloween decorations out, and it just kept attracting larger and larger crowds. And what we've done is we kept it up every year, and the crowds just got larger. So we decided, okay, well, let's expand this even further. Let's give back to the community. So what we did is we're opening up even our backyard to be completely done up for Halloween this year as of October 1st. For all to come see, not just for one night of Halloween, but for all. And we've put in a request of people bring non-perishable food items to help donate towards Bridges to Hope.
I think it's great what you're doing. Give us an approximate head count for the people that have come through the haunting on Winnipeg.
Well, last year, the head count that I believe we had last year was 1,500.
Wow. I haven't been there, but I live in the neighborhood.
Pardon?
I live in the neighborhood, well, close by anyway.
Okay. Yeah, so last year it was approximately about 1,500 kids, not including the parents. And it was probably even more, but that was where we lost count. The year before, it was about 500 to 600. And then it was just starting off slowly. Like, you'd barely get any kids, and then over the past 6-7 years, it's just expanded and gotten larger.
I think it's wonderful what you're doing. You see a need in the community, you can do something about it, and also provide a little bit of fun at the same time. I think it's brilliant. So is the box out on the lawn right now?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, folks, so you hear it. So Winnipeg Street here in the east end of the city of St. John's. It's in the old, as they call it, the city streets in the city. So Toronto Street, Winnipeg, Fredericton, Quebec, all those streets right there around McDonald Drive Junior High and McDonald Drive Elementary. So if you're so inclined and you can take advantage of this, please do indeed consider it.
And we do appreciate it, Patty.
Happy to give it another shout out into the future. Send me a reminder email closer to the beginning of October. We'll do it again.
I certainly will. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Roger. So right up until Halloween, of course, the 31st of October, and the haunting on Winnipeg at 26 Winnipeg Street, please do indeed drop off your donation if you have the time and the opportunity. But of course, we hear the numbers. The numbers are clear. You know, increased demand and maybe decreased donations in some food banks across the country. In the province of Ontario, the government has acknowledged now that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million users of food banks. So, obviously, and you know, again, it's worth noting, what was once a Band-Aid, a one-off, the creation of a food bank, is now the go-to reliance for somewhere in the neighborhood of 4-5 million Canadians. You know, we even see reports of more and more families, more and more children, more and more seniors, and, you know, more and more people who are actually working for a living and still feel the need to have to go to a food bank. It's truly remarkable at this day and age, modern day Canada. I mean, I know we're not alone in the world of the G7 or the G20 about people who are in need, but the food insecurity numbers here are drastic. 1 in 4 families find themselves in a food insecure household. So things like the school lunch association and the bump from the federal government is a good thing. And remember, it's been years where parties were talking about a universal food program, and thankfully this year, and apparently this province is the first to sign up with the federal government for that level of support, $9 million over the course of 3 years. How effective it's going to be, I guess, remains to be seen. I see some people questioning it, but, you know, and of course, it's heartbreaking to know that when school is out for the summer, that there goes the opportunity for so many children to actually get something to eat, whether it be through the Kids Eat Smart program or school lunch. Amazing stuff. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, you stay right there. Daryl will talk about EI. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Daryl, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. First-time caller, buddy.
Welcome to the program.
I'm a few issues here. I got a young fella that's going to school, so he's been working since he was 16 years old and saving his money. So he goes into EI. All he wants is his EI to go to school. They want no grants, they want nothing, just the EI. You look at him and say, okay, would you put out some resumes, blah, blah, and if you get a call from McDonald's, you quit school and go there. Like, I think there's definitely something wrong with the program. Someone definitely needs to look at it. I mean, here you are with a young guy, 20 years old, going out and doing a crane course, and EI will not acknowledge 5 cents regarding Jesse's is unemployment. But the government will take people from over wherever, bring them here to Newfoundland, feed them, give them jobs, give them money, put them up, and Newfoundlanders, young kids trying to get a trade to go out, there's lots of work, and it seems like the government won't back not one of them. There's always a delay in something.
Okay, just a couple of things. Up till 2018, you couldn't even get employment insurance while you were doing a full-time program, whether it be at a tech school or a university. So that all changed in 2018, and it doesn't make it automatic. Service Canada, you actually have to make an application to Service Canada to get EI benefits if you're attending a full-time program. I don't know about the caveats regarding if you get a call from McDonald's that you have to take the job. I guess the issue there would be that if he doesn't want to accept that call and or that job, then simply don't apply to that company. So you can avoid that part of it by simply picking and choosing where you apply for a job. But so just so I understand, Service Canada said in full no to employment insurance benefits while going to, and I guess in this case, going to a trade school.
Yes, he's doing a crane course in Stephenville.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't understand why he couldn't get his EI. I mean, nothing cheap anymore. And there's lots of people out there going through the same situation we're going through. And I think a lot of it is who you knows. You know what I mean? Like, there's people that can get it. There's people gets 100% funding. We're not looking for nothing like that. All we're looking for, and all he's looking for, is just getting EI while he's going to school. And I know a few people, and he knows a few people that they have got it. But it seems like everything he turns to is everything is going backwards on.
Yeah, and I don't know how many people who are able to continue receiving the EI benefits here in the city or in the province have some sort of connection in Ottawa at Service Canada. But that just does create a problem, though, doesn't it? You know, it's hard to understand why someone who might be doing the exact same course that has the exact same EI benefits is unable to get it when someone else sitting in the next row is able to get it. So I really don't know. Has there been like any actual formal explanation as to why? Because if you can point to a circumstance where someone else in that school or in his class has continued to receive but he's ineligible, do we know why? Did they say anything in particular about that?
No, they never know. And I've been in teaching school in a heavy equipment course, and we had students there before, like, so many got it, so many didn't, but they fought and they got it after a while. Like, why would you have to fight for something that you work for? You know what I'm saying, Patty?
I understand exactly what you're saying. And, you know, for some people, upon enrollment, you might see your checks just stop, period. So there's the potential for the need to reapply. But I don't know if there's any easy to understand eligibility criteria regarding why someone can get it and why someone can't. I don't know, but he's not alone. That's for sure.
I just wanted to throw it out there this morning. I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair to nobody, right? Like, I mean, these young ones are finishing school. They know what they want in their trades. And trades now, regards to crane, heavy equipment operators, electricians, millwrights, I mean, they're crying for them, Paddy, crying for them.
Yep.
And it seems like there's nothing there that to help them. Like we're paying his schooling. All he wants is something to live on. You know what I'm saying? That's all he's looking for. A bit of EI that he can carry on with his food, his whatever, etc. You know? But I've been talking to MHAs and all this stuff, and it seems like they're not getting nowhere with it. But, I mean, the understanding I got, when he went to EI, I was with him, they more or less told him, if you put out applications and if you get a call for a job everywhere, are you willing to quit school and go to this job? And he said, no, I'm not. I want to go to school. And she said, well, this is the end of the conversation. I'll close the case.
Yeah, it's too bad that hadn't been thought all the way through, because, you know, you could limit your applications for something in your field as a potential apprentice or something that you'd actually be interested in doing, versus being obliged to apply to every single company in every single industry throughout the community, which, of course, nobody does, because that's just unrealistic.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I mean, he could have lied, but why lie? Why would you lie about something like, no, I mean, he got his mind made up for a training course, and why would he go in there and lie and say, yeah, I'll apply? But, I mean, you know, like, you shouldn't have to do that stuff.
No, and nor is it up to Service Canada to suggest that you have to apply to every single job opportunity, from washing a dish to operating a crane. That's not necessarily how the system is set up, to be honest. So anyway, what I can do is, we sometimes have some luck, in particular with Service Canada, about these types of questions. They've been pretty good when we ask them questions about, like, for instance, throughout COVID and the benefits that came forward. They were generally pretty helpful. So I'm going to zip them off a note here now. I know how to frame it, just to see if there's any sort of eligibility criteria that I can help myself understand. And consequently, if I have that information for you, I'm happy to pass it along, because there's got to be something definitive. It can't be about one person on the other end of the phone saying, oh, no, you're not going to take the job dishwashing, sorry, closing your claim. It can't be as fundamental as that. I mean, this person isn't the arbiter of the employment insurance benefits in full. They must be going by some sort of guidelines. If it's as simple as that, I'm sure they'll be happy to tell me. But I'm going to zip off an email in the upcoming break, Darryl.
Hey, thank you very much, Penny. You have a fine day.
You too, sir. All the best. Bye-bye. And I mean, it used to be, and I remember when that changed. In 2018, they all of a sudden were extending benefits to folks who were enrolled in full-time programs, because before that you couldn't get it. You could get it if you went to some of the technical colleges, but you couldn't get it if you went to university. Someone belonged to me, I'll leave her name out of it, but one of my sisters, she made an argument to, at that point it was a standalone department, she made the argument that I qualified my weeks for employment insurance while I was going to school full-time and working full-time. How can I possibly not be eligible, because I did both at the exact same time? And she was right, and she got it. Pretty amazing. Let's keep going. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Councillor Tom Davis. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
This Friday is World Cleanup Day, and the subject is Arctic cities and marine litter. So I'm planning to go out and pick up a couple of bags of garbage. I encourage other people to do it. In particular, if you're in a marine area, go walk along the ocean and you'd be amazed what you see.
Go walk along any waterway, including like the Waterford River. I was invited by the Rotary crowd to go to their event, but unfortunately I'm out of town. But yeah, World River Day, they sent me a link along with the invitation. And it talked about there's some 100+ countries participating in this. They're anticipating there will also be, I think the guesstimate that they included was 5 million people involved directly with World Rivers Day on cleanup events. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so Friday is World Cleanup Day, and then Sunday is World Rivers Day.
Right,
just
yeah.
to clarify. Yeah, that's right. And you're right, we did invite you. So this Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. at Barring Park, Bungalow, Waterford Valley, Rotary, who has kind of self-appointed themselves to be the caretaker for the Waterford River and the different tributaries that go into it. This year we organized a number of cleanups, and so we've invited the different companies and individuals that help clean up the river to come and get some presentations, but we'd also love to see other people drop in and learn more about the river and more about the Rotary.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't make it.
No, it's okay. I know you're out of town. It's all good. You can't do it. If you went to everything you were invited to, you wouldn't get to sleep.
Probably not.
I'm sure. The gentleman's call just now, I'm going to use that as a springboard to discuss Newfoundlander and Labradorians and just probably people in general, but my focus obviously is on Newfoundland and Labrador and our values and how we process the world and all that kind of stuff. And and you and I went to school at a time when school was a lot less expensive. There's no debate. However, the pay was also less. But there's, to my mind, somehow we've got our values fooled up. So I ask myself, like, what do we value? Well, if we ask people what they value, they'd probably say one thing. But then if you look at people's behavior, you'd probably think that maybe we value different things. So I ask myself, what do we value in Newfoundland and Labrador? And I'll start with our physical health. So obviously we're willing to pretty well bankrupt ourselves to borrow money to have a the most expensive healthcare system out of any of the provinces, and we're also willing to pay our people as much as they'll demand to get them to work and get them to help our health. But then the flip side of it is when we look at the fact that we have all these challenges with our health, mostly a lot of them self-imposed from unhealthy eating and sedentary lifestyles and all that kind of stuff. To me, I think we all need to kind of sit with that, and I know that once people get so far down the road, it's really difficult to roll it back, and that becomes a real challenge with an obesity rate in Newfoundland and Labrador of 41%, and the highest rates of diabetes and cancer and cardiovascular disease and all these things. But we also have, one of the highest rates of alcohol, marijuana consumption, smoking, and I don't know how we balance that, but somehow we need to be able to have these conversations, and because we're down in the weeds with, I got to wait 9 months or a year or 2 years versus what can we be doing about it individually? What can we do to prevent it? Academics, again, that we listen to your show and just go door to door talking to people. Academics, where are we and how can we do better? But somehow we've lost our way. I mean, you and I have talked about the PISA scores in the past, which is a program for international student assessment. And since 2008, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are down the equivalent to almost 4 years of learning. And since 2018, we're down 2 years of learning. And that's a lot. And I don't know how we fell behind so quickly. I mean, compared to Alberta right now, we are 3 years behind. So, there's lots of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians in Alberta, and there's lots of everybody else in Alberta. So how, as a province, have we lost our way with how much we value it? And people say we need to spend more money, but that doesn't seem to be working out in healthcare. Somehow, within our value system, everything seems to convert to money. So now everything is valued at what it costs, but versus how hard are we at home? How, what are our expectations of ourselves, of our children? And I think somehow we've got to figure out a way to have these conversations in the public space and just somehow realize that the responsibility does start, on a personal level and on a family level, on a community level. And we got to stop looking to the Prime Minister or the Premier to solve the problems that ultimately people always say they don't want the government in their bedroom. But they really seem to want government to do an awful lot for them. And you could argue perhaps they're not doing as much for themselves as they should be.
Yeah, I mean, people don't like it when I say it, but it's kind of the reality of life. Government is not here to save your life. Government is not here to manage your life. Some things are obviously 100% personal responsibility. The unfortunate part is that government has dropped some of their balls as well. So I guess that's how people pick up on it. Anything else quick, Tom, before I have to get to the break?
I just want to encourage people to, sit with some of this stuff and ask yourself, human beings, really, we should all be trying to develop ourselves. We should all be trying to plan for the future. We should all be making decisions now for ourselves and our children and our communities. And if you're not doing that, if you're really focused just on yourself, then I think we all need to figure out that it's not the Prime Minister or the Premier's fault that, for example, we're in a financial mess or a physical mess. We're really not. I mean, they're basically give us what we scream for, what we yell for. And I would just encourage everybody to try and think about that. And because if our children are 3 years behind Albertan children, well, I'll tell you what, we have a problem. And then it's not because we're not spending enough money on education. It's because as a province, we've lost our way, and what we value is not translating into a prosperous future for us all. Anyway, guys, take care. Hopefully, we'll see you on Sunday.
Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye. I don't know what it, but what you value is up to you, right? What do I value? Time, to be honest. Of course, people will add in family or what have you, but time is something I don't have enough of, and I wish I did. Let's take a break. When we come back, plenty show there for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the artistic director at Persistence Theatre. That's Jen Dion. Good morning, Jen. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm well, thank you, because we are opening our 12-day Year of the Arts Women's Play Festival tonight.
What do folks need to know?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, getting right to it today.
Yep.
We are presenting 16 plays over 12 nights at the First Sight Center for Performance and Creativity. That's 81 Cochrane Street. And what we are doing with the wonderful $100,000 that we got from Celebrate NL under the Year of the Arts funding is we've reached out to accept 16 different play teams who are coming in to do 16 different plays written by women and gender diverse folks representing a huge cross-section of women and gender diverse individuals from across the province.
Good on you. So you said tonight is opening night?
It is. We're going to open with one that's pretty special to my heart. It's a play written by Janet Edmonds. So Janet, some of your listeners will remember, was a huge member of the creative community here in our province. She was an actor, a playwright, a filmmaker, and she passed away in 2017 of way too early of breast cancer. And Janet, at the time of her passing, had her latest play in an not quite finished state. So she entrusted it to her dear friend and renowned playwright Robert Chafe to finish after she was gone. And when this project was envisioned, Robert was one of the first people I reached out to make sure that we had an application of Janet's play. Janet actually was at the dining room table, the very first meeting where we envisioned the creation of Persistence Theatre back in 2017. And she was a good friend of mine. So it is very special for me and for all who loved her to be able to hear her work on the stage for the first time tonight.
I can't say I really knew Janet, but I had met her several times. I did see her perform in, I think the adaptation for the stage of Rig was by Joan Sullivan, if I'm not mistaken, based on a book from Mike Heffernan.
Absolutely. That was one of her last stage appearances. I was at that one too. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I was at the Arts and Culture Centre. That was probably 13 or 14, and I saw her perform as Lady Macbeth for your company, maybe a year after that. So, actually,
that was just to correct you, Patty. That was actually for Perchance Theatre.
Oh,
which
it was
is the
Perchance.
Shakespeare group.
Right. So it was.
Yeah, that's okay. I know. Yeah, we're Persistence is an easy mistake, but we're the feminists. They're the Shakespeareans.
Got it. And you're absolutely right. And that was a bit my brain just kind of a misfire there. So.
No problem.
Am I mistaken, or is there not an award named after Janet Edmonds that's been created?
I'm not sure for Janet, but there should be.
I know.
But yeah, her legacy is definitely far-reaching in our community. So we're really glad to have her work on the stage tonight. And so it's great to represent both playwrights that people are familiar with and people even going back into history. So, for instance, Rising Tide, when they hit the stage on Friday night, are presenting their own retrospective of many playwrights that they have presented over the years, over the last 40 years. So that's a really exciting opportunity, too.
Yeah, and I know there was an award established for Michelle Jackson. It just popped in my head that there was one for Janet Edmonds, but I guess that's not necessarily here nor there.
It was Janet and Michelle and I all played cards together. So it is, Michelle definitely has that award with the film festival because she was a filmmaker. Yeah. But yeah, it's great to remember the important people in our community who are no longer with us. We also have a play by Janice Spence that's going to close the festival. And of course, Janice was one of the really early big theater makers in our city. She was with the crowd that founded the LSU Hall. And it's great to have her legacy represented on the stage as well. But you're also going to see brand new playwrights like Cheney Emberg and Sophie Agnetok and Venus Barrington and many others who audiences may not have heard before. So it's a really wonderful cross-section of the familiar and the new.
I think it's brilliant. So any more details you want to give out this morning, Jen, while we have you?
Thank you so much. So we're going to be on the stage every night for the next 12 nights, starting at 7 p.m. at the First Light Center for Performance and Creativity, located at 81 Cochrane Street. And because it's 12 nights, we're going to make the tickets only $12 to get in every night. Or if folks want to, we also have an all-access pass for $100. When you come to the festival, you're going to be also presented with a passport, and you get a stamp for every night you attend. So those who collect 3 or more stamps will be entered to win a really great feminist flag pack that we're going to give away. And all the details can be found, of course, on our website, persistenttheater.com.
Jen, I appreciate the time this morning. Break every leg in the house.
Thank you so much, Patty. Have a good one.
Oh, on top of that, very quickly before we let you go, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much.
Have a great day, Jen. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, there you go. Let's go to line number 3. Jim, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, I've got trouble with my car, and it's a recall, but they won't fix it. That's what Ford Canada and Ford USA is doing. It's a elderly Ford Escape. This recall it started, I guess, in 2010 when they realized they had a car that you could be driving along with nice power steering, and all of a sudden it would stop power steering and you just have normal manual steering, which is pretty hard to do. It was decided that it was too bothersome to drivers or owners, so you could go to a dealer and they could hook up to the electrical system. This power steering is electrical, not hydraulic, and they could reset the code and it was back to power steering again. In fact, I've done my one 4 times. Now they're telling me the only way that they can do it is to put in a new part called a steering rod, and the number of that, the code number for that is 3504, and it cost $1,800, a little over. I don't know if that's including installation or anything else or tax or whatever, but that's what they gave me. And I talked to Ford in the USA yesterday, and I talked to Ford in Canada. I've talked to everyone Ford I could think of. And a fella in the USA, his name, he said I could use his name, worked for Ford. His name is Randy Tolder at Ford USA, and he wished me best of luck. That's about it.
Just want to make sure. Okay, go ahead.
I told both Ford Canada and Ford USA I was going on the talk show tomorrow morning, a worldwide talk show. And they didn't have much to say.
Yeah, well.
So there's the problem.
They're so big that even if this was a conversation that you were having on Fox or MSNBC or something, they roll with those punches because they are just, they're a behemoth. Just so I know exactly what's going on, Jim, they sent you out a recall notice. You presented your vehicle to them, and they wouldn't do the recall work free of charge. Am I on the right track here?
Well, here's what they initially done was plug in under the dash to the electrical and click, click, click on a handheld like a laptop or something. I don't know what it was. Click, 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 click. About that quick, took it off, the power steering was back. It's an electrical failure. And the code goes out. They can put the code back in, and it works good. Maybe for 2 months or 2 weeks.
Okay.
Whatever. But now they won't do that. They want to put in the whole steering column and charge me $1,800 for that. I don't know why they won't put the code back in every time or give me a hookup that it's not going to pop out. And it's a recall. They've recalled over 490,000 Ford cars in North America for that problem. But this one in Goose Bay goes with the normal manual steering, and I can operate it. But it's I stay in good condition. I can turn the wheel and drive it. But there it is. I said I was going on the talk show, and I'm so glad you took me on.
I'm happy to take your call. There was a big legal wrangling between all the major auto manufacturers in North America and some of the consumer protection advocates about even their need to keep certain auto parts on hand after, I believe it was after 10 years. Like if I have a 12-year-old Corolla, then I should be able to get a part to fix it when required, as opposed to calling junkyards all over the state or all over the province to try and find them. And the manufacturers, they won that case, if I remember correctly. Same thing with the legal obligation for the timeliness of doing recall work. They send you a recall, you should be able to present as soon as the first appointment pops up, put it in there, and they do it free of charge, as opposed to lengthy waits, because some recalls jeopardize your safety. I mean, they have to prioritize recall appointments, as far as I understand the legislation anyway, because just imagine, there was a time there were some of the Chevrolet pickups, they had a problem with the gas tank. And in certain collisions, it could explode or catch on fire anyway, and then consequently explode. Yeah. And then it was the challenge for people to actually get a replacement gas tank. Hey, that's not my fault, Shiv. You built a defective vehicle. You have to supply the part. I should not have to drive around waiting to end up in a fiery ball of hell because you can't do the recall work. So, Jim, I'm sorry to hear your issues and concerns with Ford, but I actually drive a Ford. Might be one of my last anyway, given some of the issues over the years. See, got a deal they'll make me if they're listening this morning.
Well, here's another one about a Toyota, I guess it is, that the bag the collision bag that can burst off at any time, and they tell you don't set anybody in the front seat with you. No warranty, no nothing.
There was tons.
Maybe if you were in Toronto, you could go to a dealer and get it done, but not in Goose Bay.
There's extensive recall on airbags for a variety of manufacturers.
Yep.
Yeah. I appreciate the time. As a first-timer this morning, Jim, thanks for the call. I'm sorry for your troubles.
Oh, thank you.
Take care. All right, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning, line number 5. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, am I on?
You are on.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How about you?
Good. I just calling on behalf of yesterday. I was on the wait there and on hold. I was caller number 5, and the show ended. But I was talking on the sexual victims and Churchill. Just wondering if we can bring that up again, because I know a friend that was in the court system and had charges on her. He sexually assaulted her all her life, and then she took a long time to speak about it. So when she finally did, she got it in the court systems, and the victim services did help her a lot, but the Crown really didn't do their work. And she went on, and the Jordan law come in his favor by a week over the year and a half. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, so what's the circumstance that is of concern here? Who didn't do their job, in your estimation?
The Crown and the court systems. The cop done all of her part, but then putting all the proceedings into the judge. The judge had at the end of his decision, there was like 3 days or something they were arguing over, and he had a decision to make, and he sided with the accused and not the victim. And here was 21 charges on him out in Harbour Grace, and he'd done that to many before and got off with rape before, and then all of a sudden he went on and done that to his daughter and gets off with it. And now she's stuck now trying to do appeals, and it's unreal.
So I don't know the circumstances of why the Jordan timeline was not met here. But if the police did their job appropriately and handled the evidence correctly, and it made its way into the hands of the Crown Prosecutor, and for whatever reason, whether it be some of the gaming of the system we see with people firing their lawyer at the last moment and how that might have an implication with Jordan, which is not that cut and dry as far as I understand. But I mean, this might be as fundamental as we simply don't have enough Crown prosecutors. I mean, that probably played an active role in the Kurt Churchill case and story.
She had a crown. He had a lawyer. There was none of that changes. It was just...
but everyone has a lawyer and a Crown attorney. The problem is whether or not the Crown prosecutor actually has the appropriate amount of time to prepare for what is obviously a very serious case with the other 200 cases on his or her desk. That's the argument being made by the person who's at the helm of the Crown Prosecutor's Office, Sean Patton. Same thing being made by Helen Conway-Ottenheimer, is that maybe some of these timelines are not hit because we are asking superhuman efforts from people who are just stressed and strained to the max.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I just want to touch in on that bit, Dale.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did. Look, this is a bigger story, and because it's the case regarding a murder and Kurt Churchill, and he's facing more charges in Ontario, and it's not the first time he's got a fairly easy trip through the criminal justice system, then of course that gets headlines. But there's going to be dozens of similar cases that might not be the headline grabbers, like a murder or rape or those types of things, where people are not getting in court in a timely fashion, and consequently not being prosecuted. Well, we'll see what the determination of guilt or not guilty might be at the end of it, but how many cases have been thrown out because of timelines? I would imagine more than we know.
Something got to be done about the Jordan law, especially when it comes to sexual victims, because they're there shaking apart, telling their story, and then all of a sudden it's out in the court, and the judge looks at her and says, no, we can't do nothing about it because it's a week over or whatever. This is not right. And something got to be put in place for that.
I agree. No argument coming from me. If you are charged and the evidence leads to or determines you should face trial, then we have to ensure that every one of those charges are followed through. We'll see after the proceedings whether or not you're found to be guilty or not, but to see charges thrown out simply because of timelines regarding Jordan is not good enough for anybody, I would think.
There's a lot of guilty people left out on the streets. Like, he's going to re-offend because he's done it before. So he's living in Toronto now, and it's not good. But anyway, I gotta get back to work. I'm on my dinner break, and I was just trying to get that out there.
And I'm glad you did. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. I mean, no doubt, inevitably, some of the folks who've seen the charges thrown out are probably guilty. Now, some of them might not be, but we'll never know because the case wasn't heard. Let's go to line number 4 and talk about authors in art. Good morning, Michelle Penny-Rowe. You're on the air.
Hello, Patty. How are you this morning?
I'm grand, Michelle. How about you?
I'm wonderful on this beautiful sunny day.
'Tis exactly that. What's on your mind? Oh, pardon me. I know what's on your mind. Tell us about authors in art.
Okay, so we have an upcoming annual event. We were established in 2015, so this is like our 9th year. So we're very excited about this. We're Authors in Art is located in Freshwater, just outside of Carbonear. So this year we have the honor of celebrating the Year of the Arts. So we have some funding this year, so we get to kind of pay that back to our participants. So, it's a great thing. Excuse me. So I'll kind of paint the picture for you a little bit.
Please do.
We have 3 authors, and they are each paired with 2 artists. So the author's spoken word inspires these artists to create paintings previous to the event, of course. Excuse me.
No problem.
And I just have a tickle.
Been there.
Okay. So I'm so excited, I can't even talk. So we have our author spoken word. It inspires the artist to create the visual image. And then they join us for this. I'm going to have to pause just for a second.
Michelle,
okay?
I'll tell you what. I'll put you on hold for the news. You get yourself a glass of water. We'll come back and we'll pick it up after the newscast. How's that?
Deadly.
Perfect. There you go. Michelle is on hold. Look, I've been there. Not only the scratchy throat, but then every now and then I get a little dose of the giggles, and I cannot kick it. Period. Let's check it on Twitter before we get to the said 11 o'clock newscast. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Let's go ahead and take that break for the news. When we come back, we'll rejoin the arts and event organizer for authors in art. That's Michelle Penny-Rowe. Then Marie's there to talk about home insurance, and then we're talking to you about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's give it another shot on line number 4. Good morning and welcome back to the show, Michelle Penny-Rowe. You're back on the air.
Hello, Patty. Good morning. Just sharing with you an up-and-coming event that we have in the Carbonear freshwater area, Authors in Art. So our annual event, this is our 9th year, so it's going to be a big year, is Saturday, September the 28th. So this year we're celebrating the Year of the Arts in partnership with the Department of Tourism and Recreation. So, we've got a big event lined up. So we have 3 authors who we showcase. This year's authors are Michael Crummey, William Ping, and Holly Hogan. Now, we were really pleased to learn that all 3 of these are also finalists in the Winterset Awards, which is a really prestigious thing for writers. So, this is going to be a fantastic lineup. Every year we change out our authors and artists. So we pair an author, with 2 artists. And what happens is, previous to the event, the artist will read the author's written word, and they'll get inspired somehow by this piece. And at the event, we'll have our author read their piece. We'll have the unveiling of the artwork. Ramona Deering is our MC, and she'll guide people gently through the questions and the process of this. So with these, 3 fabulous authors, we're sure to get inspiration. But not only that, but we have the 6 artists who are going to be showcased as well. So we have Sarah O'Art. So you can go online and see a lot of these local artists. We have Magoli Power from Different Strokes Art Studio, St. John's. We have Jackie Evans, who's an established artist as well. Dwight Saunders, fabric artist. Chris Donnelly, he's no stranger to the music scene in Newfoundland, but he's got some fabulous photography. So we kind of have a little mixture of, well-established and up-and-coming, and it's pretty exciting. And we also have Tina White, who is a fiber artist. So, it's just a beautiful evening. We're really, really passionate about it. It's an afternoon, really, September 28th, from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. You get this opportunity to chat with the artists and authors after the event, and it's at the Freshwater Community Center. There is an entry fee of $25. We sell our tickets through Eventbrite, but we also have some hard copy tickets for, people who aren't, computer inclined. So we have some tickets that we're selling at Aura Boutique in Carbonear at 149 Water Street. So, just kind of reach out to us, see how you want to get your tickets, call up a friend. You'll be really surprised. It's maybe something you may not have even thought of attending, but you'll leave feeling really, really good, and it's really interesting. There's only 80 seats, so it's a very small event, really.
So for the Coles Notes, what exactly is the relationship between the author and the artist?
Okay, so I'll just set the stage for you. The author has their written piece, and what happens is we select our authors, and then we select our artists, and each author gets 2 artists, and they'll just read that story, and they will, previous to event, they'll create this art inspired completely by that story. And then the event itself is the unfolding of. So the art will be veiled, and, the sheet will come off, and they'll be reading their story and showing, the creations that were created through the inspiration of the written word.
It sounds good to me. And the authors, of course, I'll be familiar with all. We've had Holly on the show to talk about her book, Message in a Bottle. Michael Crumey's most recent novel, The Adversary. I think that's what it's called. It's on my bedside table in the pile to be read. Looking forward to that. And William Ping. I haven't read a whole lot from William, but I did read a short story that he wrote called The Reign of Lord Guzhu's Terror or something. And it was a hilarious short story about Brad Guzhu and what he means and his team means to the province. It was a delightful short story. But Crumey, of course, well-renowned, internationally renowned author. And Holly's book, Message in a Bottle, I read that as well, and she came on the show to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, you have to get your ticket and you have to come out and see us.
It kind of sounds like a lovely event. Michelle, I'm glad you made time to tell us about it. Give the folks the details just one more time, the wheres and whens.
Okay, so it's Authors in Art, Freshwater, outside of Carbonear, Saturday, September the 28th, from 2 to 4. Your tickets can be purchased through Eventbrite, or we have some hard copy tickets at Aura Boutique at 149 Water Street, Carbonear.
It sounds great.
You can check us out on Facebook, and you'll get even more details and of past years as well.
I appreciate the time this morning, and good luck with the event. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. That's Michelle Penny Rowe, artist and organizer of Authors in Art. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to the independent member of the House of Assembly, elected in and serving the folks of Humber Bay of Islands. That's Eddie Joyce. Eddie, you're on the air.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you again for taking my call.
Happy to do it. What's on your mind this morning?
Patty, I'm going to speak about the student assistance issue on the West Coast. I was at the meeting last Thursday night, and many parents are in dire circumstances with no student assistance. This year, for some reason, which is partly due to the Jordan Principle issue, which some people feel is being interpreted wrong, it's critical. The Department of Education did not supply the appropriate amount of resources. At the meeting, you hear where kids couldn't go to school because there was no student assistance assigned to him. There's no student assistance available, no money allotted. And you see many parents that spoke up that where their kid last year had 3 to 4 hours, this year only got 1 because they're split up because of lack of funding. The issue with the Jordan Principle, just to explain to your listeners, it's a federal program for children with status that they would support individuals who need the extra support in a school setting. And according to many the parents and the people I spoke to, is that the provincial government, with their student assistance, was using this Jordan Principle as a way to save money for themselves. And if a person was assigned to a student with status who was supposed to be for that student, then they would divide them among 2 or 3 other students and not give the proper care to the 3 students. So if you hear the dire situation, the dire circumstances of what was expressed at that meeting, where there's kids sitting there soiled in their pants because the student assistant was assigned to somebody else who was supposed to be taking care of that child, where kids were staying home wondering why they can't go to school, I'm calling upon and I wrote the Premier, calling upon the provincial government to supply the adequate funding for the student assistance for this year. And to not be back in this situation, I asked the Premier to do a complete review, do some kind of 1-year review of how we can make this better. And I'll just give you an example, Patty. If a kid if a student has autism, this is expressed at the meeting, has autism and a few other issues about him going to school, every year they have to go through the red tape. The kid's condition is not going to change. The student's condition is not going to change. But yet they got to go through the red tape every year to get the student assistance. And so in some cases, one person mentioned, they said, well, you got to call your principal. They called the principal after school, and the recording is we're not in until September 3rd. So that day, the kids couldn't go to school because they couldn't reach anybody to see if it's approved, and this is the day the school is supposed to start. It is a very serious situation. It is dire for a lot of the parents and mainly the children. Plus also, Patty, with the lack of resources, the classroom and the teacher who's trying to give the studies to the rest of the students are at a very high level of stress because some of the kids don't have the proper resources and the teachers trying to help out where possible. So I'm urging the Premier, because he is the Premier and he can make the decision to supply the necessary funding to put this to bed for this year, but just don't say the issue is gone. Let's do a complete review of how it's allocated, the process, and if you were at that meeting last Thursday, one of the biggest concerns that you would hear is that the parents aren't consulted. And we need this, Patty. We need this. So I just want to say to the parents and to the kids and to the families, to the teachers, thanks for speaking up. Thanks for making this such a big issue, because you're going to help the children to get back to school. You're going to help the classroom, and you're going to really provide inclusion, as the province always says that we should have in the schools.
You know, I don't know if it's even all about funding necessarily. Now, Tina Neri at Inclusion Canada says it's about funding, and she may very well be right. She works on this issue all the time, day in, day out. But I wonder whether or not we actually have the appropriate number of student assistance supports, even trained and available to be in the workplace. I guess you have to have one in place before you have the other, but I don't even know how many people out there actually would qualify to be one of these support assistants, whether it be itinerant teachers and or reading or math specialists, because unless the funding's there, then we're never going to have these supports in place, period. But I don't even know. Let's just say the government plunked $100 million on the table today and said, we're going to fill every support role. I bet you we don't even have people out there trained and ready to go.
Paid, and in some cases that may be true, but out here on the West Coast, I know there's call-in student assistants who can't get full-time work. Is there enough to fill all the full-time positions? I don't know. This is why we need a review. But I know there are people out here who are on a call-in list. They're on a call-in list, so they want to work full-time, but they can't get a job full-time.
Absolutely, yeah. That's probably
so
obviously
it is a lack of funding. It is a lack of funding. And to put a Band-Aid on it this year and say, okay, we got it resolved, is great. But what's going to happen next year and the year after? So this is where we need a complete review for the whole student assistance program across the province. And if the province wants to have an argument with the federal government on the Jordan principle, saying that you should be doing this, don't leave it up to the parents, as was suggested, that they should go to human rights to fight this for 5 or 6 years. The parents have enough grief. They have enough stress now. They have the kids that shouldn't have to go through this. What the province should do, if they're going to have a frank discussion with the feds on the Jordan principle, do it, but not on the backs of the children. Let's get them all back in school. Let's get them all into the resources that they need, the appropriate resources that they need, and then let's do a review. And if we got to have a good, frank discussion with Ottawa and on how they're doing their funding and putting their funding in place in the school system, I'm with you, Premier. I'm with you. Let's do it. But let's not do it on the backs of these children or these parents who are under enough stress now trying to find out if their kid is safe in school.
Yeah, and of course, the federal issue would only be inside that one particular principle as opposed to student assistance and the educational authority that the province has. Appreciate the time, Eddie. Thanks for the call.
Patty, thank you for allowing me to raise this very important concern on behalf of the parents and the children.
Happy to do it. Stay in touch.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Eddie. Bye-bye. Eddie Joyce, independent member, Humber Bay of Islands. Marie, you're next to talk about home insurance. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Marie, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you on this sunny day?
Grand today. Thanks. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. Patty, first I want to give you a background on my home insurance story. This is important to the story. Like, say, over 40 years we had, home insurance and that, and maybe one claim or two at the most. So what happened, the story now is we had a main water leak a couple of weeks ago, and everything was going well, and I'm sure it was covered in that. So yesterday I phoned my insurance company. I'm talking about the claim, and they said to me, if you pursue the claim when we pay you, we will drop you from the insurance. Like, we're not renew. They use the word renew, not renew your insurance. So I said, why? I mean, I'm a great customer, heavy deductible, $2,000 deductible for years I've deliberately put there. And they said, well, you had a sewer backup just under 3 years. So they said that was a rule. My point is, I said, it's not on my policy. I wasn't aware. I would never have put the claim in. And I said, I would just got a letter saying I wasn't renewed, thinking everything was well. I said, I should have been told, right? Adjuster didn't know about it. Claims department never mentioned it to me. It was the broker. And it was only because I was talking about the claim and mentioned, would be premiums may go up or something. And then she said, no, we won't renew you if you would pursue the claim. And I said, what can I do? And they said, withdraw the claim, which I did. But I think you should have the knowledge of that. Like, if you can't help it if two big events happen within 3 years. You could be 40 years with no claim. That's my point. I
totally get your point. Like, for instance, if I live on the Mississippi Delta and I'm repeatedly filing home insurance claims, of course they're going to drop me because of the known associated risk. But living on a street in the east end of St. John's, you get a water backup or whatever else happens, and you have to file a couple of claims in the course of 3 years, which is exactly why you have home insurance. To be dropped like that is just patently unfair. I mean, it just really, truly is. They
gave me a chance to withdraw it, and I did. But still, I feel like I was forced to do it. I said, what am I paying insurance for? I hardly ever have any claims, and then when you do, this is what happens. What's the point? Never missed a payment either. Full payments all these years, nothing like that. There's nothing unusual with my story. I'm not one for claiming $100. Nothing like that. $2,000 deductible over 40 years. And I didn't change companies unless they sold the company. So I can't understand it.
I can't either, and unfortunately now you got me a little nervous because I'm in the same circumstance with my home insurance. We had a basement flood. I didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing, wrong on our end, but we had that. Yeah. And the adjuster was really quite frank with us, said there's an indeterminate number of years. He didn't give us a specific number, he said, in the future, if something similar happens, you might not be able to get coverage into the future. They might drop you as a customer. And I'm thinking, wait now, what have I done? How's it my fault that something happened? And it was just basically the amount of rainfall, and eventually it started coming up through the toilet. So I'm in the same circumstance, and I'm just going to find a bit of wood to knock on here that I don't suffer any damage, because paying out of pocket for the amount of repair money required that time, I don't have it. So the insurance companies,
it's $2,000 deductible, and I think it would have cost me another. I haven't got the pavement fixed that they had to tear up, so that'd be over $2,000 again. Yep. And I wouldn't have put it in if I'd known that. Like, I found that by accident. Like, I got the shock of my life. I was upset. I said to my husband, my God, I had no idea. You'd never think, with over 40 years and you're not one for claiming. No, and nothing my fault either, same as you. It was broke. The water main leak had to do on the driveway. That had nothing to do with anything we did either.
It's probably, look, I hate to put all the insurance brokers to work here today, but if you've had a recent claim, regardless of whether it was property and or personal liability, which are two different things, right? If someone gets injured on my property.
I understand that, yeah.
But it's probably worth asking, and I should have asked then too, but now it's just popping in my own head. So let's say if I had a property claim and then a couple of years down the road had a personal liability claim. There's a variety of ways where someone can, unintentionally cause an injury on my property, regardless of what it was, and something that I didn't do, something they did, but it's my property. Yeah. So I wonder if I claim a personal liability or file a personal liability claim in the future, whether or not that constitutes me as a repeat offender, so to speak, and they dump me. Yeah. Interesting. Call your insurance company, folks, and make sure you know where you stand.
Because, and all I said to him, I said, is it on my policy? And she said, no, it's not a government rule, it's our rule. I said, but I was never aware of it. I said, the adjuster never said nothing. She said, you should have been told maybe when we had the sewer and water backup almost 3 years ago. I said, no, nothing was mentioned about any future warning. I said, I had no idea. And I wanted to help people so they would have an idea. If you've got anything within 3 years, I don't know if it's just water related, check with your broker. Check it out.
100%. I'll add to it. If you're talking about, the whole concept of switching from oil to heat your home to something else like an electric furnace or what have you, make sure you ask your insurance company. It's not just about government grant money. Make sure that the changes that you're planning will still get you covered by your home insurance policy. So that's another reason why you should call your insurance provider if you're doing something like that.
And we did do that actually recently, switched to electric. I told them about it. They didn't say anything about that. They said, if you withdraw the claim, can you imagine though? I would have no trouble probably with renewal. They didn't guarantee me, but I would definitely not be renewed if I pursued this claim, which was covered. There's no issue that it was covered. It was just the fact it was within the 3 years. I couldn't believe it.
It's certainly not ideal to be carrying a policy, paying pretty hefty premiums with a pretty hefty deductible, and then lo and behold, when you need it, it's the end of the road. Unbelievable.
Exactly. Yeah. And some people don't have the money. I'm just lucky enough, Paddy, I could pay this out of pocket now, but, you know, what if you couldn't? What would you be doing? And then you got no insurance, or I don't know how you get more. You know what I mean?
I do know.
Yeah, so I'm glad I told you, so you can keep an eye out.
Absolutely, and that's just fair warning to all policyholders out there.
Yeah, that's why I phoned.
Sometimes you just, you sit down with the broker, and whether or not you have a no-frills policy or a comprehensive policy, and you need to understand things about sewage backups and the like too, and about specific coverages that you probably do not have on your policy, and then you find out the hard way. So ask the questions. Insurance is too important, too expensive to be all of a sudden left in the lurch or left without the opportunity to renew. Because imagine if your damage had to be $25,000 worth. You'd have to take the chance. You'd have to get the insurance company to do it and then drop you and then shop around and see if anyone else will take you, which is going to be tough as well because they all know who dropped who.
That's why I didn't do it. I said that's why I let this go. But what if, like you said, if this had been over 20,000, well, and you would probably have to claim it and then look around. Like you said, that's what I was saying. It was a real shock.
Yeah.
Real eye-opener.
That it is. I'm glad you opened a few more eyes this morning. Thanks for the call, Marie.
Yeah, and it's lovely talking to you, and take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, it's just about time for the news. When we come back, Kelly's there to talk about a stolen car. Lots of that on the go. Certainly maybe a bit more prevalent on the mainland, but it absolutely happens repeatedly here. Then there's a caller who talks about what kind of information he or she cannot get from 811. Then the medical flights conversation happening with Leila Evans, of course, the PC member for the Torngat Mountains. And then an NDP town hall. And then maybe time for you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the PC member for Torngat Mountains. That's Leila Evans. Good morning, Leila. You're on the air.
Thank you, Patty, for having me on. I'm just calling in again now this week to talk about the significant barriers people in my district face when they're trying to access medical care. And the reason why I keep raising the issue, Patty, and I have to raise it again because of what's happening, is when you can't access proper medical care, it really impacts your lifespan, your ability to thrive, your ability to recover from illness and injury. And on the North Coast, we're not getting the proper access. And I've been raising it in the House of Assembly because we got a long history of being bumped off the medical flights. As most people are aware now, if you hear me talk, the government, when they were connecting the province to giving them road access, North Coast never got connected. When they connected all of Labrador, all the regions of Labrador, with road access to the Trans-Labrador Highway, we weren't connected. Now, Patty, and I just want to outline the significance of that because it impacts our access to health care. In my district, there's not a single community that's on an island. We're all land-based. We are all accessible by road if they had built a road. But right now, I just want to talk a little bit about medical care.
Okay.
I was promised, I keep raising it in the House of Assembly. And, it was shocking when I got calls from patients and family members of patients who were chemo patients undergoing cancer treatment. And first when I heard, I thought it was a mistake. There must be a mistake. There must have been a problem with the travel plans, because we got no road, everyone has to fly out to their appointments and to their treatment. I thought it must have been a glitch, some mistake, a one-off. And I started talking about it to people in my district, and they said no. And then they started bringing up examples of where chemo patients. Now, that's life-threatening when you can't get out to your appointment, and also when you can't get home to rest and recover because your chemo treatments are scheduled. But this summer, actually in June month, it was confirmed to me that there would be an increase in medical flights that would address these shortfalls. It would basically help people get out and back to their medical appointments and to their treatment. But Patty, all summer, I've had to deal with the reality that this never happened. So it was an empty promise. And a lot of the patients who are traveling, getting caught, or having to cancel and reschedule their appointments and their treatment, they said we're experiencing less flights than before they were going to have this new program. So the failure to address this, like, it's not just what's alarming is not only the chemo patients, but we have people in Northern Labrador, same as the rest of the province, may have cardiac disease, vascular disease. We've had patients, because they didn't get timely access to care, because of some vascular complications, had to have like a leg removed. And this has happened, several times. And like just most recently, I got a call from, it was an expectant mother who had miscarried. And this had happened 10 days ago. She called me yesterday, it was 10 days. And because they weren't putting her on the flight so she could go out to Goose Bay to have the care and support, the medical care, because there's a lot of complications if you miscarriage, so it has to be dealt with. So Patty, like from the time her symptoms was 10 days, and then you're looking at, okay, it was confirmed to her last Monday. Well, this Monday, yesterday, she was talking to me, and she said, like, Leela, as the MHA, can you help me get out? Can you help me get on a flight? She wasn't asking for a medevac. She was just asking to be able to get on the flight that takes patients out. So, Patty, like, it's not only that we haven't had our concerns addressed, and it's impacting our overall health care, our overall mental health, but it's like we've been promised these extra flights so our patients can get back and forth, that can actually have some access to quality of health care. But now it's like we've been lied to, Patty. It's like, and did they say that to quieten us up, to shut us up? And it wasn't only me that these extra flights were confirmed to. It was to Nunavut government in my district, and also the Innu, Napachish in my district. We were told that these were going to be the extra flights they were needed.
Okay, so you say can't get on a flight. Is because there isn't a seat on a plane, or there isn't a flight, or what exactly is going on?
The thing is, like, say, for example, now I was having a conversation with a nurse in Napachish, because, we do have rotational nurses in Napachish. I was talking to a nurse, and she said, well, Leela, since they've rolled out this new program where we were supposed to get the increase in flights, so we'd have more seats for patients to fly out to their appointments, fly out to their treatments, to be able to get the care. She said, like, say, for example, I'll throw out a number. If today we needed 2 seats for Napachish, if we needed 11 seats, if we had 11 patients supposed to go out today for their treatment, we were only getting 2. So she said we're only getting a fraction of the availability for our patients to be able to get out. And it's the same thing for Hopedale, Maine, Postville, Riglet, and McCormick. And the patients are coming to me because I'm visible, I'm out there. They're coming to me and saying it's worse. And they're all upset. Why even promise us? Why even commit to actually giving us more seats so our patients can fly out if they're not going to live up to it? This summer has been a disaster for everybody because people were expecting to be able to get out and back, and it's not about weather. Sometimes we do have weather delays, and it does create like a backlog. But this is happening when the weather is good. And Patty, like for you, if there's something wrong, you can go to your doctor or you can go to Emerge and you can have your testing. But for us on the North Coast, like most of our diagnosis, our treatment, we got to get on that flight. And the barriers, we can't. Like say, for example, in Maine, I had a parent call, her son was injured. She was told, and you could tell from looking at her son's arm, his arm was broke. And she was waiting now 3 days to get him out for an x-ray and get it treated. And she was concerned. She said, Leela is starting to go back together. Like they're going to have to re-break it. It was so many barriers. And that's not as significant as chemo patients being bumped. or people who may have renal problems, kidney problems, people with cardiovascular illness, like people are waiting to be diagnosed with cancer. I've lived through that. I've lived through loss of having family members and close friends and relatives who were diagnosed too late. And as the MHA, Patty, if you can't access timely health care, then really, what's the point of fighting for everything else? Because it's all related if you can't be healthy. Like I called in last week talking about access to food, the cost of food, and the liberal programs that they've implemented since they got in power, since 2015. That's really hurted the people in my district. And like, say, for example, it's not only about getting out to your treatment, it's about getting home. I've had people call and the weather's good and they've been delayed 5 days. Well, they've used up all their sick time. They've used up all their vacation time, their holidays. And they would say to me, like, Leela, we're trying to save that. And they used their time to go off hunting and fishing and gathering, berry picking, fishing, to offset their food needs, and also about mental health. So it's all related. And my problem is we're not getting any support from this government. This government is not helping, and who's in my district?
So very quickly before I have to go, Leela, so can't get a seat on a flight operated by PAL? Because we're not talking about Medivac, so who's the actual carrier here?
The carrier is Air Borealis,
okay.
But the flights are arranged through Labrador-Grenfell Health Region. And I have many conversations now, and they a lot of times they'll ignore me with Labrador-Grenfell Health about trying to get people out or trying to get people back. And I run into the same problem with Medivacs, where patients are delayed getting out. And I think I was on Openline this past winter where I was talking about a patient who had symptoms of stroke and was delayed getting a Medivac because there was priority for somebody else. And then when they finally gets out to the treatment, they got damage that really impacts their ability to come back and function in the community. I've had another person who was having symptoms of a stroke, was supposed to be medevaced out, was delayed in being medevaced out, told that they were going to have to wait until the next morning. In the morning came and went, and there was no medevac arranged, and they had to actually work to get her. Her family had to work to get her on a regular passenger flight. So the failings are great. For me, Patty, if I can't help the people in my district access life and death health care, or I can't actually help people to be able to access health care, access adequate health care so they can have quality of life, or the families can have quality of life, really then, what else can I do? Other than try and call out, the Labrador-Grenfell Health Region and the government.
Understood. I appreciate your time and your concern, Leela. Thank you.
Yep, it's alarming, Patty. What's happening to my people is shocking. Yep, thank you.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye. Before we get to the break, let's go to line number 4. Caller, you're on the air. Line number 4, caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, Patty. My question was just I was trying to get through E11 this morning, but just my question had to do with, do you know if the COVID shots or the flu shots available right now? Because I can't find nothing online, and just wondering if they're available right now or when they would be available.
They're not available yet. No appointments for either the COVID or flu shots yet. And the vague answer coming from Public Health and Dr. Fitzgerald is this fall. They haven't updated a specific date yet, but the short answer is not available today.
Okay, so basically stay tuned for more information.
Pretty much.
Thanks very much.
No problem.
Okay.
All the best. Bye-bye. All right, let's take our final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the NDP member for St. John Centre. He's the leader of the party, Jim Dinn. Jim, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for having me on. I just want to announce the... hello?
Yep.
Oh, I'm going deaf, obviously. No, that tonight we're having our second of a town hall meeting at the BIS Club on Harvey Road, and it's basically to discuss the the idea of a community center for the Tessier Park, Livingston Street area. So we'll hear a report from Courtney Davis with Thrive, and it's important, I think, that all representatives or all people, residents in the area, get out and have a chance to hear what the report is and to have their input. So that'll be taking place tonight at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's the second one we had. We had one about our first one 2 weeks ago. There will be some refreshments provided, but it's an opportunity to hear what a community, get people's thoughts about a community center. It's something that I and other people have been promoting for quite a while, but we see it as certainly one answer to the issues plaguing the area, plaguing the neighborhood.
I had a little trip in my equipment here. So what report are you discussing tonight?
It's about a year ago, I've been pushing for, I know myself as an MHA, the establishment of a community center. So Thrive, the CSSD had commissioned Thrive to do a report or a consultation or a study to see what this would look like, what a community center would look like, what the support is, feedback from people in the neighborhood. There have been a number of events that have been held over the last almost a year now. Courtney Davis was tasked with from Thrive was tasked with that responsibility. So she's had a chance to present her findings and her result once, but we figured we'd do a second one as well to make sure as many people as possible could get out to hear it.
What would a community centre look like here? Because it's one thing to have a hall or a bingo hall, but what's a community centre? What's inside? What are you proposing?
Good question. And certainly, if you're familiar with some of the community centres around in my district, you've got the Froud Avenue Community Centre and you've got Buckmaster's Community Centre. What they provide activities, whether it's educational activities, it's about bringing together the residents and neighbours and empowering the residents and neighbours to take an active part in their neighborhood. The Froud Avenue has a number of, for example, after-school programs for students. They run a number of summer camps. The Buckmaster Circle is a little bit different because it has a Boys and Girls Club next door, which does a lot of the outreach with the children. But in all of them, it's a case of bringing community members together. So it depends on what kind of support services the community deems necessary. So it's more than just the hall. The hall is just where we're meeting tonight. But in each of these places, if you were to go to, you'll see that in Newfoundland Labrador housing units were turned over to house the people, whether it's social workers, outreach workers, community volunteers, community individuals who work with the residents to, I guess, build the community center as they see fit. It could be very well a counseling center. It could be for after-school programs for children. It could be anything really that the residents deem is important and that they want to see it evolve. But at all stages, it would also have, I know in the other board of directors, I guess, made up of residents in many cases. That's what will be envisioned here. It's not the answer, Patty, but I know that from my own personal involvement, when I was first running, and Jerry Rogers took me around, introduced me to the community centers. They have a positive impact on the neighborhood. It creates that sense of belonging. It creates that sense of empowerment for the residents, and giving them a much-needed voice as well.
So where, when for the town hall this evening?
So it'll be at the Benevolent Irish Society on 30 Harvey Road, and it's from 6:30 to 8 p.m., and there will be refreshments provided. And if they have any more information, they can call 729-2638. That's my office.
I appreciate the call, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Jim Dinn, NDP member of St. John Centre and leader of the party. Final word goes to line number 3. Kelly, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Grand today. How about you?
Oh, not too bad, but I just wanted to call and let your listeners know that on September 16th, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., my niece's car was stolen from Squires Road in Paradise. It's a 2016 Chrysler 200. It's grey, silver in colour. License plate number is JDZ985. They got both kids' car seats, their diaper bag, her work belongings, personal belongings, and her glasses. My sister's car was in the same driveway. They broke into that, and they took her work computer, which was recovered up on Shea Heights yesterday. But she has two very precious items that were taken. One was our father's head bandana that he wore. It's black with red, yellow, and orange flames on it, and he's passed. She had that for when she rode on her bike. And her late husband's ashes, which was in a little green urn with 3 wolves on it and a moon. Her friend's vehicle that was in the driveway as well, they attempted to smash out his front windshield. And they also stole his work laptop and a lot of his business cards and whatnot, which was recovered on O'Brien's Way in Paradise. So I was just wondering if any of your listeners come across any of these items or have any information about any of these items, would they kindly contact me at 709-680-4637.
4637. So 680-4637. And the car stolen from Squires Road on Paradise was a 2016 Chrysler. What did you say? 200?
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I was familiar with the 300. I used to have one. So good luck, and hopefully someone sees it around and calls you or calls the RNC, whichever they prefer. But the amount of break-ins in the cars, there was a gang operating in our neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, and thankfully they got pinched because someone saw them, reported them. Thankfully there was a cruiser in their neighborhood and got them, but it's just absolutely endless. You know, there's an argument out there that not only should we not leave anything of any actual value, and I'm not suggesting we take the car seats in and out every day, but anything of any value, if they see it, they're going to get it, no matter if they have to break the window or otherwise. And, you know, an argument one of my neighbours makes is, I just leave the car door open. There's nothing in it. If they steal it, so be it, but I'm not going to have a broken window, and, you know, for the sake of $3 worth of coffee money in the in the cup holder. Fingers crossed you get some or all of these items back, Kelly. I'm sorry it happened.
I appreciate your time, Patty. Thanks so much.
Anytime. Take care. Right, bye-bye. There's some tips being offered by individuals and, yes, insurance companies. You know, things like a keyless entry to your vehicle, and, you know, you don't have to put the key in, you simply press the button. Apparently they can mimic that very close through your door. So, you know, if you have in your porch the basket where you throw your keys, probably shouldn't throw that keyless fob right there, because apparently they can copy it even through your home front door. So that's one thing. And the numbers of people going up and down various streets breaking in, even if it's just to break in for the sake of those couple of loonies in the cup holder, is really unbelievable. All right, final check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Openline. You know what to do, and our email address is openline@vocm.com, but our favourite, of course, when you join us live on the air. Big thanks to everyone who supports the program, all the callers, listeners, emailers and tweeters. You're all right. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.